Hi everybody, welcome to Combat Japan. I'm your host Andres Vergara. Today we're going to cover news and notes surrounding the world of combat sports in Japan. We're going to get started with some kickboxing by covering the K-1 DONTAKU event, which just wrapped up this past Monday. We're going to talk some Grand Sumo to talk about the ongoing Nagoya tournament. And then we're also going to cover some recent RIZIN announcements surrounding their upcoming Super RIZIN 5 event, which will take place in Osaka. So with all that in mind, thank you so much for joining me. Let's get started. All right, so K-1 DONTAKU took place this Monday. Our main event was Tian Tarzan, the cruiserweight champion, against KG. Worth mentioning, KG is a late replacement for the original matchup, which was Lucas Achterberg. He was the 90 kg Grand Prix winner that we saw earlier this year from Germany, Mr. Hightower. And I was super excited for this fight. Achterberg just ran through everybody in the 90 kg Grand Prix, and then of course we have Tarzan, who's undefeated and basically has all finishes. So I was just really excited to see how this matchup would turn out. Unfortunately, Achterberg, I think, had a herniated disc and had to pull out of the fight. So that kind of reshuffle affected the card a little bit because originally Mahmoud Satari was going to fight KG at cruiserweight in this third fight down the card. So that had to be shuffled around as well. So we ended up getting a short notice Akira Jr. Replacing KG, who replaced Lucas Achterberg. Mahmoud Satari ended up taking this a heavyweight instead of cruiserweight, probably because Akira didn't have enough time to get down to 90 kgs. With all that being said, it was a fun card. It was a little long, to be honest. If you look at all the matchups here in the card, you'll see that they had part 1 and part 2, right? So part 1 had a slate of 8 fights, being headlined by the women's atomweight championship between Veronica Rodriguez and Aki Sumatsu, and then plus another 9 fights, and then also prelims. And the reason I said it was a little long is because I believe out of these 18 fights, at least 14 of them or so went to decision. And think about that for a second, right? So they all go the distance, or the majority of them go the distance. That's going to be a long card, right? So I think the whole broadcast ended up being over 7 hours. And I typically don't watch these live. I just watch them the next day as soon as I wake up. But this one was just a lot. It was just a really long card. And I think it's just a byproduct of maybe booking too many matches. I know they're trying to make a big event of it, but it's definitely not their pacing. Like K1 doesn't. So for RIZIN, for example, in between fights, they'll play like a video package, kind of hyping up the next matchup. In K1, they don't even do that at all. Instead of a video package, they just show a graphic showing who the next 2 fighters are, and then they just do all the hype up as they walk out. So in terms of pacing, K1's pacing is like super fast. You can have great pacing, but just maybe book too many fights. And I think, personally, I think this was just a lot to watch and sit through in one sitting. So I know I read somewhere that Genki Sudo is like prioritizing shorter events and having them more often. I think that's a winning approach, right? I mean, nobody watches, a 7-hour basketball game. I guess if you're watching like a double header or something, but I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I'm done complaining. But yeah, I'm not going to go over the entire card. I'll just go over some of the things that stood out to me. We can just start right at the top of the card. So we had Tian Tarzan versus KG. This was yet another round 1 finish for the champion, the cruiserweight champion, Tian De Vries, also known as Tian Tarzan. He basically just overpowered and knocked out KG. I feel like that's what he does, right? He just has incredible power, just super fast, incredible athlete, and he remains undefeated at 35-0 with 31 knockouts. Think about that. He's never been defeated. 35 wins, 31 knockouts. What a freaking beast, man. And kind of on the topic of Tian De Vries here, I did see a post saying that he's planning on just having 1 or 2 more kickboxing bouts and then transitioning over to MMA. So he might do the whole Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya route. I wonder, I mean, that's super interesting to see who he would sign with and what kind of path he takes, but kind of sucks for kickboxing, man. I feel like a lot of these people like Rico going over to fight Usyk, or Pereira, Adesanya, like all these guys are just kind of moving away from the sports that kind of made them famous in the first place, right? Same with like Tenshin, because now he's purely a boxer. So I don't know why kickboxing is so unpopular. I think it's freaking awesome. I love the 3-minute rounds. I love the pace. I love that they're just brawling for the most part. So don't know what to make of this as far as what it means for kickboxing, but I'm happy to see Tian Tarzan fight in any promotion. I think that'd be sick. All right, moving on to the co-main event, we had a bantamweight championship bout between the current champion Issei Ishii versus the challenger Nego Katono. Nego Katono comes into this as the Crush Flyweight champion, as a challenger to the veteran Issei Ishii. And despite being only 19 years old, we get a stoppage finish from Katono via knocking down Ishii 3 times, so the 3 knockdown rule. And he's the brand new K-1 bantamweight champion, despite only being 19 years old and only having 8 fights before this. So he was undefeated at 8-0, and now he moves up to 9-0. So he's being called the future of kickboxing here. You got a local Japanese star. So this is just good news for kickboxing and K1 in general. So that was awesome win to see. Next fight, we had Mahmoud Satari versus the late replacement Akira Jr. at heavyweight. This was real quick work from Mahmoud Satari. I think the fight finished within 30 seconds via knockout. Really, really clean finish. Satari took virtually no damage, so we'll probably see him again soon. All right, next we had a bout between Zora Akopian and Kazuki Matsumoto. This was one of the many decisions of the night. So this went to the judges. It was I was mentioning earlier that kickboxing is usually very exciting, and this fight was not that. It felt like they were just feeling each other out for 3 rounds. I mean, nobody really turned it up until the very end. I think Matsumoto started turning it up, but at that point he had already lost by points. But alas, we have Zora Akopian taking this one via decision. They had a women's flyweight championship bout between the current champion Saho and the challenger from Brazil, Laisa Silva. I think that's how you say it. Saho really just beat the crap out of her. I mean, this went to decision, but this wasn't a boring fight. This was very action-packed. Laisa Silva, much rangier than Saho, but she wasn't really using her range effectively. Like Saho was out jabbing her and also like doing push kicks and stuff that you'd expect to see from the taller opponent. But Saho had a decisive win and defended her championship at flyweight. All right, then we had a super lightweight bout between Ayumu versus Kotaro, who also happened to be a late replacement. I think the broadcast was saying that Kotaro took the fight the day of, or maybe the night before, so he had to like fly in and basically just lace up and fight. And this one was super action-packed. Both guys really put it on each other. Kotaro at the end just went balls to the wall, just pure action, lots of heart. The decision did end up going to Ayumu, and you could see Kotaro just being devastated. But I think everybody was just really surprised by how well he did, given the fact that he was like a 1-day notice, and it was a very competitive affair. All right, then we had 2 in a row K1 World Max 2026 qualifiers. All right, the first of these was Achilles Carapiperis versus Zach Pankhurst. And this one went to a decision as well. It was a real scrappy fight. Both guys hurt each other. I think at one point Achilles really wobbled Zach Pankhurst, but Pankhurst ended up with a unanimous decision, and he moves on to the opening round of the K1 World Max. And then for our other qualifier, we had Lorenzo Divara versus Sergio Sanchez. We got another unanimous decision, this time going to Divara, beating Sergio Sanchez in a really competitive bout. I believe Divara lost round 1 and then came back in rounds 2 and 3. He really busted up Sergio Sanchez's nose. You could see he was just bleeding from it, and it just looked all swollen and busted up. But we have Divara moving on to the opening round of the K1 World Max, as well as Zach Pankhurst. And then we also had one more decision win for Kohei Hatanaka, defeating Viktor Akimov. Really, really good kicks to the body. Very convincing win for Kohei. Not much more to say on this one. But yeah, overall fun card. Like I said, kind of a lot to sit through. I guess just touching base real quick between Veronica Rodriguez and Aki Sumatsu. We have a new women's atomweight champion in Aki Sumatsu. This one went to the extra round, so it was scored a draw after 3 rounds, and then they went to the 4th round to kind of decide who wins the whole thing. And that was Sumatsu. I gotta be honest, in my opinion, this was a bit of a funny judging. I think Veronica Rodriguez actually won the fight within the first 3 rounds. So I have no idea why a judge gave it to Sumatsu, but that's what happened. And then Sumatsu legitimately won that last 4th round, so she is the new champion. But I don't really agree with them having to go to that extra round when, in my opinion, that was a 3-round win for Rodriguez. But it is what it is. Try not to leave it in the hands of the judges, and that's what can happen. So that is it for kind of the recap of K-1 Dontaku. Excited to see what's going to come out of the Cruiserweight division when Lucas Ochterberg comes back, and particularly what how the World Max is going to shake out now that we have two of the entrants in Zach Pankhurst and Devara here. So more to come from K1 this year, so stay tuned. All right, moving on to Sumo. All right, as reported by Combat Japan, that's me. Current Sekiwaki 2 West, Awanishiki, is set to regain his Ozeki rank following his 10 wins in this Nagoya Basho. So Awanishiki was Ozeki in the past two tournaments. When an Ozeki has two tournaments with losing records, they get demoted back down to Sekiwake. But it's a special type of demotion because they have one chance to be promoted back up to Ozeki without having to meet the requirement of originally getting promoted to Ozeki, which is that 33 wins at this over 3 tournaments. So if you get demoted from Ozeki down to Sekiwake, which is what happened to Aonishiki because he was injured, that first tournament as a Sekiwake, if you get over 10 wins, then you're immediately promoted back up to Ozeki. And as of today, day 11 of the Nagoya Basho, Aonishiki got his 10th win over Gonoyama. And he, not only that, he's actually the leader for the entire tournament. So he has the best record at 10-1. So this is a really exciting development. We were all worried about what was going on with Aonishiki. He had pulled out of the previous tournament entirely and had 0 matches. And the tournament before that, I believe he won 7-8 or something like that because he was dealing with an ankle injury. So before that, he'd never had a losing record. So he is back to the Aonishiki of old, looking real unstoppable. Worth mentioning though, the next 4 days he's going to have a lot of tough matchups. He's going to go exclusively against members of the Sanyaku, the name ranks. So we shall see how it shakes out in terms of the tournament win. But he has already secured his rank back to Ozeki, which is significant because if he wins 2 tournaments in a row at Ozeki, he's eligible for Yokozuna. So keep an eye out on Aonishiki. I just wanted to touch base on how some of these guys are doing real quick. So let's see, Aonishiki. There he is, 10-1, with his 1 loss coming to Yoshinofuji, who's Komusubi for the first time. So he is in the Sanyaku, and he's doing pretty well. I think he's like 5-6 or something like that. It's a notoriously hard rank because you're fighting up the Sanyaku. You know, you get all the tough guys, and then you get all the guys at the top of the Megashira ranks as well. So Yoshinofuji, if he can aim for a winning record, that would be a really good achievement. But anyway, yeah. Aonishiki 10-1. Another big story this tournament is the rise of Shishi. So he's the other Ukrainian wrestler. I'll show you here. There he is. Good old Shishi. He's let's just say not technical. I think a lot of his wins comes from the fact that he's just a massive person. And obviously he's good at sumo, but he's not world class like his fellow countryman Aonishiki. He makes a lot of blunders, let's say. So he's, not necessarily thought of as being like an exceptional sumo wrestler, but he comes into this tournament at Megashira 14 West. And prior to day 9, he was one of the co-leaders of the tournament. I think he was like 8-1 or something. And he had a loss to fellow leader. No, sorry. He had a loss to Asahakuryu on day 10, dropping him down to 8-2. But then on day 11, he gets a win over fellow co-leader Kotoeho, who was coming into this. He was 9-1. So the only other guy that was tied with Aonishiki on day 11 was Kotoeho, and Shishi beat him. So Shishi is 9-2, and because Shishi beat Kotoeho, Kotoeho is also 9-2. You'll see here, here's Kotoeho. His last bout was against Shishi, and it was a loss on day 11. So both of these guys went from being co-leaders on day 10. Now they're both part of the group that's trying to catch up to the sole leader, Aonishiki. But I just thought that was interesting to point out that Shishi was having such a great tournament. Still is, by the way. And then Kotoeho, the only other person that was tied with Aonishiki, lost to Shishi. So he's had quite a bit of an impact on this tournament as well. Just worth mentioning as well, Kirishima, or newly appointed Ozeki. So for Kirishima, he almost won the last tournament. He lost to Wakata Kakage, I think, in a playoff match. I think he went 12-3, but actually I can just see. Yes. So he went 12-3 and only lost in a playoff match. And I believe the Yokozuna Deliberation Council might count that as a Yusho equivalent, so a tournament win equivalent, because it was such a good score. And he ended up basically getting to the very, very end, just losing in that playoff. If he were to win this tournament, he would technically meet the requirement of having two tournaments in a row where you have two tournament wins or win equivalents. And if that were the case, given the fact that he's an Ozeki, we could see a Kirishima promotion to Yokozuna. That's if he wins this tournament. So a lot of people had picked him to win. He's looked very strong. He's also 9-2, part of that group trying to catch up to Nishiki at 10-1. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that shakes out in the next 4 days. Let's touch base here on our Yokozuna West, Onosato. He has been dealing with a lot of injuries recently. In this tournament, he didn't start out too hot. Let's see here. He had 2 losses to start off with, then one win against Takanosho, and then 1 loss against Gonoyama. But after going 3-1, he went on a bit of a run here, and people were saying, hey, he's starting to look like himself. So he ended up going on a 4-win streak. But he ran into Ao Nishiki, who's our leader right now, 10-1. Beat Daisho, and then just lost to Atami Fuji, who's our Sekiwake, and Atami Fuji is huge. He just made Onosato look really small. And these guys are just gigantic, right? So it says Onosato is 189 kilograms. So that's got to be like over 400 pounds. Yeah, long story short, you have your Yokozuna, who should be getting at least 10 wins per tournament, if not winning, coming in at 6-5. So not really ideal for Onosato. And then our Yokozuna East, Hoshoryu, one of my favorite wrestlers, has also been struggling a little bit. He's 7-4, dropping 2 back-to-back, one to Ao Nishiki. So Ao Nishiki's already beat both of the Yokozuna. And then he had lost to Yoshino Fuji as well, who's a really hard to beat guy. So I think Hoshoryu has had over 10 wins in every single tournament that he's been in ever since becoming Yokozuna, that he hasn't had to pull out from injury or anything. So I can see him getting 10-5. So he needs to get 3 more wins to get there. But that one tournament win since becoming Yokozuna has been extremely elusive for Hoshoryu. So one of his big criticisms is that he has not won a single tournament ever since getting promoted to Yokozuna. So he has a lot of pressure from the JSA, from the fans, saying, you're Yokozuna, when are you going to win a tournament? So always cheering for my boy Hoshoryu, but he's definitely not going to win this tournament. So it's looking like my pick would be either Kirishima or Ao Nishiki to win the whole thing. All right, that was it for Sumo. Moving on to RIZIN. So RIZIN held a special press conference to announce a bunch of matches coming up for Super RIZIN 5 on September 10th. Starting off with the biggest announcement of them all. So we have a featherweight title match between Razavali Shadolaev and AJ McKee. So Shadolaev is the featherweight champion for RIZIN. He's undefeated at 19-0, mostly finishes. He's just incredible to watch. And then obviously AJ McKee, former Bellator featherweight champion and PFL star. And as you may notice here from the graphic, it's a RIZIN and PFL featherweight title match. So both titles are on the line, so both belts. So the winner of this will become the RIZIN and the PFL featherweight champion in this cross-promotional fight. I don't understand how that works, just logistically. Like, so if Shadolaev, say, wins, how is he going to defend the PFL title when he's signed to RIZIN? Is everything going to be a co-promotion between these two moving forward? I think probably he'll just have to vacate or something. I don't know. But this is super exciting. I mentioned Shadolaev is 19-0, AJ McKee 25-2, and honestly, these are the two best featherweights outside the UFC. This is probably the highest level of MMA at featherweight that you can put together, and these guys did it. So PFL, John Martin and Sakaki Bara agreed to this cross-promotional championship match. So I think that's really cool. All right, next we have Mikuru Asakura versus Shinya Aoki, the veteran. So Mikuru Asakura is Japan's most popular fighter. He's got a huge following. He's Kai Asakura's brother. Both of them have a huge YouTube following. Mikuru Asakura also runs the Breaking Down promotion, which is like a lower tier of MMA. I think it's just a bunch of tough guys just fighting each other kind of thing. He's just an all-around superstar. Draws the biggest crowds. And then we have Shinya Aoki, the veteran, the Dream Champion, the One Champion, Shuto Champion. He is submission specialist. So, you know, the Aoki lock, that's him. He also trained very closely with Jinosuke Kashimura, who just fought Danny Sabatello. This is a bit of a surprise. Everybody thought Shinya was completely retired, so we'll see what happens here. Mikuru Asakura is coming off of a fight against Shadolayev, who just mentioned, a featherweight. So he got the hell beat out of him. I think he might have had a broken orbital. So we'll see how he rebounds from this. Next, we have the former lightweight champion Roberto Satoshi Souza versus Shunta Nomura. Shunta is a younger prospect. He has a lot of experience in deep. Out of his 2 RIZIN fights, he has a win over the current lightweight champion, Luis Gustavo, and he also has a win over Patricky Pitbull via decision. This is a really good test for both of these guys. Can Shunta Nomura beat somebody the caliber of Satoshi Souza, and does Souza still have it, right? Is he able to kind of put away this guy? Souza, obviously being the former lightweight champion, having a lot more high-level experience than Nomura. Satoshi also holds a win over Luis Gustavo, the current champion. So it's very likely that the winner of this will probably end up fighting for the championship. We shall see what comes out of this one, but that's very exciting as well. All right, Karshiga Daubek versus Ren Hiramoto. So we just saw Daubek in Landmark 15. He beat Hagiwara via knockout in round 1. Ren Hiramoto is one of Japan's biggest stars. He holds a win over Mikuru Asakura. Ren obviously was a kickboxer prior to MMA. In MMA, he's only 4-3, but he had an extensive run with K-1 as a kickboxer, having a lot of success there. And he's just one of the more notorious fighters. I think he's just very popular for this, bad boy attitude. And it just really resonates with the fans. So this should be a very entertaining fight. I think Daubek will probably take it. He'll probably do exactly what he did to Hagiwara, or probably rely more on grappling, but we shall see what happens. But Daubek comes into this at 19-2. So, all right, next we have Yaman versus Yutaka Saito. Yaman being experienced in kickboxing and MMA, he's I believe only 2-2. Yutaka Saito, a lot more experience in MMA, but I think he's like lost 6 out of his last 7 or something like that. Older fighter. I think they're trying to get Yaman back on track here, but this should be exciting as well. I will do a proper preview episode for this card. We're just kind of going over some quick thoughts of these matchups. Okay, here we have Reina versus Natasha Kujatina. So Reina is one of the OG women's MMA stars in RIZIN. She just fought Seika Izawa for the super atomweight title and lost. And this, just worth mentioning, this is part of that, they're calling it the invisible tournament for the super atomweights, where they get to pick which one of these super atomweights will end up fighting for the title on New Year's Eve. We already saw the results of having Siwoo Park and Saori Oshima win their respective fights in RIZIN Landmark 15. And this is yet another one of those matchups. And I believe they're going to pick who they think was the most exciting out of all these wins. And then they're going to fight for the vacant super atomweight title now that Seika Izawa has vacated, because she is going to focus on having her first child and being a mother. But yeah, that's a lot of announcements, right? And I think that cross-promotional fight between Shadolayev and AJ McKee is going to be huge. So much so that I actually saw it spoken about in like major outlets. Like I saw Luke Thomas talking about it in Morning Combat, and I think Ariel Helwani even covered it in his show. So getting some buzz. So that's really, really cool. I think it'll get a lot of eyes on both of these guys. And just Shadolayev is freaking awesome. So I'm excited for that. All right, we'll switch back here. All right, so that was your news recap for the week. Be on the lookout for a video on the Nagoya tournament. So I'm definitely going to put out a video reacting to the results of what happens in this Nagoya Basho. So like I mentioned, right now we're in day 11. So day 15 will be this upcoming Sunday. So I will for sure have a reaction to that and a breakout of the results. Beyond that, I think I'm going to make another appearance on the We Are RIZIN podcast with Andrew Benjamin. So I was there previewing Landmark 15 about 2 weeks ago, and I think we're going to kind of debrief on what happened this upcoming Sunday. So be on the lookout for that. If you want to learn a lot about RIZIN and JMMA, definitely listen to the We Are RIZIN podcast. But that is it for me. I hope you're really excited about all the things that are happening. I think there's a lot going on, and I'm very excited to see how everything will shake out. Um, yeah, from sumo to kickboxing to MMA, we got a lot going on. So that's very exciting. So anyway, thanks to all of you that watch and subscribe. I really appreciate every single one of you. That is it for me. I'll catch you in the next one. All right. Thanks. Bye.